Izuku Shigaraki by Fangirl48 on AO3. Chapter 22. Conclusion of Act 1. Prelude. Toshinori let out a deep sigh as he waited for Izuku. Explaining the boy's situation to Sir Night-Eye had not gone over well as he could have. In fact, he should be locked up, Night-Eye yelled, slamming his hand on the table. And that's if his ridiculous story is even true. For all we know, this could be one of his tricks. Now, Toshinori spoke, trying to calm the man down. Tsukuichi looked into his school and was able to find evidence. And Gran Torino and I have seen the graves personally. Izuku isn't lying. But he is still All for One's brother, Night-Eye argued. That makes him your enemy. Toshinori's heart thumped louder at that, as One for All heated up a little under his skin. I think you've forgotten who his other brother was, Toshinori said, coldly. And you weren't there like we were. You didn't hear about what happened to All for One's family. It doesn't matter what happened to him, Night-Eye spoke coldly. He was, and has always been, a monster. Silence desolated over the pair, as though all sound had suddenly disappeared from the world. Toshinori's eyes widened in horror as he stared at his once close friend. A monster, Toshinori repeated, fists clenching on his knees. A moment later, his shoulders sagged as he looked at his reflection in the porched table. You're right. Hisashi Shigaraki became a monster. I'm glad, but... The number one hero stood up, activating One for All. Before he was that monster, he was a man who lost everything he held dear trying to protect people, a man whose pain and grief shaped him into what he is now. I will never forgive All for One, but now we have a real chance at stopping him. A chance at what? Sir asked. He's dead. Toshinori shook his head. He's alive, All Might said, hand coming to rest over his heart. Izuku says he could still feel his brother out there. I think I can too, thanks to One for All. And knowing that, I'm sure that one day, Hisashi Shigaraki will come for his family. So, the boy's bait? No. The hero shook his head. He's hope. Hope at finally stopping All for One. Midoriya studied All Might for a while, processing the words before a sickening feeling rose inside him. You're not thinking of giving him One for All, are you? All Might looked upwards, his blue eyes alive with fire. I haven't decided yet who I will give One for All to, but the decision will be mine to make. The pair held the intense gaze for a few moments before Sir Night-Eye was forced to look away. Fine, he spat, gathering his stuff and putting it back in the briefcase. You don't want to listen to me. You want to get tricked by someone who shares All for One's blood? Go right ahead. The man stood up and walked towards the door. But I won't be there when this blows up in your face. Goodbye, All Might. The door slammed, and for the second time in his life, Sir Night-Eye walked out of Toshinori's life. Toshinori crossed his arms and thought about it. He wasn't naive. He understood Midoriya's concern. To Sir Night-Eye, Izuku had just appeared out of nowhere and somehow charmed his way into the number one hero's life. Midoriya didn't know Izuku like Toshinori did. He hadn't seen how much this boy was struggling to catch up with 200 years worth of change. He didn't know about the sadness that Izuku carried around him. Toshinori probably would have felt the same if he hadn't come across Izuku that day. Nashi! Looking up, Izuku was running towards the hero at full speed, something in his arms. When the boy was finally in front of the hero, he looked up and smiled. Toshinori smiled back, noticing the red around Izuku's eyes and wondering if he had been crying again. "How were your lessons today? Did Nezu give you homework?" "Oh, well, sort of, but you'll never guess what I found out today." Izuku smiled, opening up the rather large binder he had carrying around and shoved it in Toshinori's face. "Ichi never deactivated my email. He didn't forget about me." Toshinori took the binder with slightly trembling hands. That was something he never considered before. It felt too soon for Izuku to. Cauliflower_King1. Farmu_2. Toshinori turned his head and coughed, a little blood seeping from his lips as he read the names. Shoulders shook as the tall blonde began to laugh. "Cauliflower?" Izuku stared for a moment, with wide eyes, before he burst out in laughter as well. "I know, right, and they named me Broccoli?" Toshinori really lucked out as far as nicknames. Since he loved growing things so much, he got to be the farmer. Toshinori held his side, laughing louder. Who would have thought that the most terrifying criminal to walk the face of Earth would use a vegetable as an email name? As the two walked together, talking about random topics, until Izuku brought up the topic of attending UA. "Nezu said I should read the syllabus of all the courses. Support course sounds neat from what May showed me, but I think he wants me to try for the hero course," Izuku said, clenching the binder tighter. I just don't know if that's right for someone like me." Toshinori glanced at the boy from the corner of his eyes. "And what is wrong with you?" There was a tense moment, and Izuku stopped walking. "I couldn't save my family," Izuku confessed. He hadn't gotten too far reading the emails before he had to stop. The phantom voices of both Tomura and Hisashi begging him to come back home became too overwhelming for Izuku. "Izuku," Toshinori said, looking off in the distance, eyes widening when he realized where they were. Suddenly, an idea came to the hero. "Come with me for a sec." The pair walked, eventually, coming to what looked like a trash dump. Izuku frowned as he saw all the garbage and wondering why people hadn't cleaned it up. "Sarah Witchwenster," Toshinori spoke, sitting down on the concrete barrier. "She was the first person I failed to save. There was an accident, and she was pinned down between a car and a wall. I know that there was nothing I could have done to save her, but for a long time, I wonder if I could have been faster or stronger. Would she still be alive?" Blue eyes looked at green. "The hardest lesson you ever learn as a hero is that sometimes, no matter how much you try, people die. Maybe you weren't fast or strong enough. Maybe we didn't pay close attention. Or maybe, just maybe, we used our quirks wrong. Or get too angry." "Have you?" "Yes," Toshinori answered honestly. "I know you said he isn't dead, but for a long time, I did, and I thought it was my hands that killed him." Izuku stared at Toshinori, eyes wandering downward to where his scar was. Did Hisashi have a scar just as bad? "But to answer your question about being a hero, yes, I think you could do it. What happened to your family was wrong, but no matter how scared you were back then, you still tried to save them." The blonde spoke firmly before standing up and looking at the trash-covered beach in front of them. "You're a bit like this beach, Izuku. There's still a lot of pain and grief for you to process." "I see," Izuku said, looking at the beach, a determined look coming to his. "I'm the beach." Toshinori nodded. "Then I think the beach needs a makeover, Izuku spoke, walking down the stairs to the closest piece of garbage and picking it up. And I'm gonna give them one. Then, Izuku turned and looked at Toshinori, the sun shining brightly behind him. Then I'm going to become a hero and save Hisashi. Somewhere, deep inside One for All, Tomura heard his brother's words and started crying. He might not have been strong enough to save his brother alone, but this time he had Izuku with him and everyone else as backup. Even if it's a hard way, it's a plain to see the reason why. Oh, that's all because of the mighty heart. Hisashi gritted his teeth, ignoring the feeling of blood as it dribbled from his nose. His determination to find the person singing overriding every other desire at the moment. That song. Hisashi hadn't heard it sung in over 200 years. No one should even know about it. The rare times he hummed it to Tomura, All for One never spoke the words out loud. But someone did, and you know who. A treacherous voice whispered back. Inko's lullaby, the only thing she really remembered about her parents. She taught it to all of us. Shut up, shut up, shut up! Hisashi growled at the boys, pushing the technology quirk he was using to its full extent. Trying to hack his way into UA was much easier years ago, when Hisashi's injuries weren't weighing him down. Even with his secret back door, he had to be careful not to fall into Nezu's traps. The air changed as Kirigiri opened a portal into All for One's lair, and Tomura rushed out. Sensei. Crimson eyes widened as Toshinori saw blood seeping from the man's nose and ears. If All for One still had use of his eyes, Tomura would bet they would be bleeding also. Knowing better than to touch his sensei when he was using his quirk, Tomura kneeled down next to him. Sensei, please stop. Your injuries. We know you adapt to sacrifice ourselves, whenever they may say. Turning his head to the source of the sound, Tomura saw someone in an oversized black hoodie on one of the monitors. The camera couldn't make out their face, since the hood blocked most of it. But Tomura just knew this person was the source of Sensei's pain. Eyes narrowed at the person. Tomura couldn't help but hate them more than anything else in the world right now, even All Might. Hisashi had almost broken through when a sudden firewall appeared in front of him, severing his connection. Fuck! The man swore, falling against his chair in exhaustion. Stupid fucking rat. Tomura placed his hand on All for One's sleeve. Sensei, you've got mail. Oh, what now? All for One growled, pulling up the email absent-mindedly. Kirigiri, would you please? Of course, Sensei. The bartender bowed, walking forward and looking at the email. Golden eyes widened as Kirigiri looked at Sensei for a moment before looking back at the email. Well? Kirigiri coughed and took a deep breath. Are you still my Hichan? One for All tensed up, unseeing eyes turning towards Kirigiri. What? Like the song, only one person had ever referred to Hisashi as Hichan. The same person who had disappeared without a trace. The same person he had sent a letter to just weeks ago, musing how he thought he had felt them out there in the world somewhere. The same person who should, all accounts, be dead. Izuku. Are you my Hichan? The bartender repeated. The email listed someone called Braka. Enough! The man roared, startling Tomura enough that he fell backwards. The pair watched the man frozen in terror, as All for One took many deep breaths to try to calm himself down. Tomura, the symbol of evil, spoke, looking towards his son, in all but blood and reaching out. When Tomura flinched, All for One froze and pulled back. I'm sorry, Tomura. I'm just in a bad mood today. You've done nothing wrong. Tomura lowered his head, an old feeling of fear welling up inside him. Is there anything I could do? To help? No, my boy. This is something I have to do myself. All for One smiled bitterly. You just continue making plans for your debut. I hear you have something quite bold and ambiguous in mind. Yes. Tomura smiled nervously. Then when the time comes, I wish you the best of luck. All for One reached out again, patting Tomura's head. But I doubt you'll need it. You've exceeded my expectations time and time again. I know you'll become a symbol of your own right. Sensei, if I succeed with my plan, Tomura said, licking his dry lips nervously. I mean, when I succeed, will you let me help you? All for One smiled again, this time a little more genuine. As soon as he found Izuku and made sure it was his brother, Hisashi would introduce the two. Izuku loved Miracle. No doubt he would love Tomura just as much. Of course, Tomura, whatever you want. All for One hoped this wasn't a cruel trick, but the paranoia that came the position of King of the Underworld wouldn't leave him alone. As much as All for One wanted to hope his brother had come back, he also had to protect Tomura. Hope was a cruel thing. It made you greedy for the impossible and could destroy even the strongest of people. No, Hisashi couldn't just hope yet. The villain had to think about this rationally. Someone out there knew about Izuku and were using his identity to contact All for One. This meant that this person may know where Izuku, or rather, what was left of his baby brother. All for One needed that closure if he was ever going to succeed in the future. He needed to find out what happened to Izuku, so that when he finally secured One for All, he could apologize to his brother. And if this meant ripping through his fake and whoever else he had to find out, then Nahashi would do so. Madame President of the Hero Public Safety Commission kicked the rock away as she looked down disdainfully at the device in front of her. For weeks, something had been trying to contact with the HPSC's network. At first, they thought it was a hacker or a virus, but it never attempted to do anything other than sending data. When nothing else had worked, the president gave the order to all the connections to go through. Only for a simple pair of coordinates lay inside along with a symbol for the HPSC. Whoever had set the alert had worked for the organization when it was still called the Department of Quirk Affairs. Madam President, one of the techs said, holding a tablet out to the woman. My deepest apologies. This technology is too old. We weren't able to salvage as much as we originally hoped. The woman took the tablet. Do we know what this place was used for? The man nodded and gestured to the giant machine. Of the three in the room, the only one still intact, saved for the broken glass. From what we can hypothesize, this place was meant as an experiment prison, he exclaimed. Only one unit was ever put to use. ID? On the table, he said, pointing to the large control panel that looked to have seen better days. It's amazing, too. The man never got a chance to finish his thoughts. The president pulled a gun out, delivering a headshot before the man realized what was happening. The other three techs screamed at the murder before they were each ruthlessly executed by the woman. Take what you can and scrub the place, the president ordered her secretary. I want no traces left behind. Yes, Madam President. Everyone remaining spoke at once. Once the woman was safely hidden within her car, she pulled out the tablet and opened one of the documents. The data was heavily corrupted due to age, but the person's name and quirk was still readable. I//K/SH/A/A/I. Alias, all or nothing. Madam President sucked in a sharp breath at the name. It couldn't just be a coincidence that the name was so close to All for One. Pushing the link to the only video file, an old man appeared on the screen. What I am about to tell you is meant only for the highest level of authority in the Department of Quirk Affairs. If you are that person, to listen to me and heed my warning. What we kept away is the brother of the most dangerous monster out there. He goes by the name, but many have started calling him All for One. All for One's brother. The president straightened slightly, now looking more interested. Though his abilities are too. Those of his meta abilities is useful, he proves to cooperate with us. I suspect that finding out is his sister-in-law and nephew's deaths. So, All for One once had a family, and the DOQA probably had them killed and covered up their involvement. No doubt, with all the metas running loose at the time, finding someone to blame would have been child's play. If our latest efforts to eradicate the meta scum prove successful, then he would be at a severe disadvantage. However, is smarter than his brothers, and indefinitely more dangerous. The boy is a serious threat to humanity. If meta freaks are still around in the future, it will take him no time at all to amass an army under him. Heed my warning, and do not underestimate. The screen went black as Madam President leaned back and thought about what she had just learned. The man's attitude, that horrible, was not surprising. From the unredacted files she had read, people with quirks were treated horribly 200 years ago. The creature rejection clan looked like some schoolyard bullies compared to what she had learned the metas did. But she was curious about meeting the boy this man claims to be more dangerous than the symbol of evil All for One. Perhaps, if she found him before anyone else, she could turn him towards the HPSC. Ways of thinking. If she and her scientists could do with a quirk like this, the possibilities were endless. Or maybe Hawks was a good soldier, but he lacked ambition. With just the right amount of pressure, she could make him number one. All Might won't be around forever, and Endeavor had too many secrets that she could make use of. Perhaps it was time to start looking at the next generation. Oh my god, that was the last chapter of Izuku Shigaraki. But do not worry, there will be a chapter tomorrow on the next part of this series, because this is the Forgotten Musketeer series, and next one is Welcome to Your Hero Academia. And I also got permission to podfic that one, so I am happy about that. That's also gonna get podfic. Can we talk about what the fuck this chapter just was? Oh my god. Okay, first of all, Sir Night-Eye hating Izuku is canon, in the canon, and here as well. No surprise, no shocker. All for One wants to introduce Tomura and Izuku. I feel like that's gonna go really bad if that does happen. And can we talk about what happened to Izuku? For a while, I thought, All for One was the one responsible for that, but now we find out that it was actually, technically speaking, the Hero Commission, but like what they were in the past. Because they weren't always the Hero Commission, but they became the Hero Commission. Oh my god. That is very interesting. And the Hero Commission wanting to use Izuku is like, that's icky. I don't know what's worse. Them thinking he's a threat and he needs to be eliminated, or them thinking they could use him and basically manipulate him like they manipulate Hawks. So, I think it's literally just a choose your own poison kind of thing. They're both poison. There's no winning in this. It's both bad. Just one might be slightly worse than the other, or, But yeah, I cannot wait for the next series. I'm so shocked. I'm sorry. I really hope it wasn't, like, experimented on. God, I'm upset. But, okay. As always, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds, have a wonderful day or night. Join our community Discord server, link is in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.